Is it just me, or does anybody else find themselves dancing to that intro music? Oh gosh, my hair. Oh, good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Barb. Good morning, Cindy. Cindy was asking me about some patch material that I had mentioned a few days ago. Was that just yesterday? Never mind, it was just yesterday. So anyways, just to follow up for you guys, yesterday on a take up, which is a live broadcast by Eric Campbell every Friday, 3 p.m. Is it 3:30 Central Time? Anyways, he was talking about building patches, and I threw out there that um, if you need to shop local, your local Joann's back in the upholstery fabric, excuse me, the outdoor upholstery fabric, you'll find a polyester twill that is very tightly woven and very good for patches. So that brings you up to speed. But today we're going to talk about hats. Yes, we are. Not these uh, stiff, hard, structured hats. Everybody's got those. Good morning, Letty. Letty's here. Good morning. Good morning, Letty. Um, so yeah, we're not going to talk about structured hats. This is a piece of cake. What we're going to talk about are floppy hats. Look at this. This thing's got no support. Yeah. Not just floppy hats, but bucket hats. Yeah, again, no support. And I'm reaching over here, visors. How do you stitch a hat that has no hat? Well, we're going to talk about it. So, where do we want to start? Um, Lady says she feels like a floppy support. Oh, sorry. We have a guest. Come along, little girl. I do these things, and she thinks I'm talking to her. So, all this puppy love. She's got to come and let me know that all is right with the world. And it is. For those of you that don't know, this is Bella. Bella will be 5 months old on the 12th. And per her doctor visit on Thursday, she is exactly 5 pounds. Yep, 5 pounds. Cindy says hi. Yes, she does. Yes, she does. All right. Now, unless you're going to help me hoop a hat, you're going to have to go lay down. Okay? Go lay down. That's a good girl. That's a good girl. So, what do you do with a floppy hat? How do you hoop this thing? Well, here's what I have learned. Now, of course, my education comes from other people who have done this. Um, and I've used what they have suggested. And now I know that it works for myself. Now I'm going to pass it on to you. So we have a floppy hat. We have an unstructured hat. Sometimes they're called dad hats. This is actually a ponytail hat. Yeah. So this one has, unlike a dad hat, this one actually has some space in the front. Dad hats are usually a little lower profile, which limits the amount of stitch area you have. But this is the hat that we're going to talk about today. And what I want to tell you is that when I'm working with an unstructured hat, I structure it. Yeah. So what do I do to structure it? I use hat backing. You know that stuff. It's a little heavier than your standard tearaway backing, usually about 3 ounces if you're looking for um, a weight. And it it does. It tears. Honestly, it does. Oh, there we go. Just got to find the grain. So, anyways, it's a tearaway hat backing. And what I do is I structure the hat. Now, on this hat, it's not an issue. I can find the center easy enough. There's a center seam, just like with your your structured hats, your 6-panel structure hats. Yes, I always use hat backing on my caps as well. If ever you're in doubt whether to use backing, whether it's on a structured hat or an unstructured hat, do a test. Stitch one without backing and stitch with the other with backing. It's easy peasy. In fact, if you do like a left of center logo, you can actually do both tests on one hat. There you go. Okay, so this is my floppy hat. I have a center seam. I take my 3-ounce backing and I fold it in half. Yep. So now I have a center seam. And then I take some temporary fabric spray adhesive. Of course, there's dozens of different products on the market. I use this one. This is KK100. It's a Gunnell product. But again, you can use any temporary spray adhesive. Good morning, Jessie. Jessie, it's so good to see you. And what do? I'm reaching under here for my trash can because I don't want a lot of overspray. So I'm going to take my backing. I'm going to lay it in a spray containment container, and I'm going to give it a heavy dose of spray. When it comes back up, it's going to be all tacky on my hat. I pull the sweatband down just like you would if you're hooping. I take my stabilizer and I line up my center seam of the stabilizer to the center of the hat. And I smooth it out inside. Of course, this gets a little tricky. If you find it helpful, use your, and what is that called? Your hat hooping jig to help you get the stabilizer inside the hat. Use the tablecloth method, which to smooth it out, which just means you start in the center and you smooth toward the outside edges. And when it's ready, your floppy hat is no longer floppy. You see that? We have a stabilizer inside. We're going to go ahead and fold up our sweatband here. Yep. Now, it's a little tricky. Take some practice, but everything we do does. But look, it's no longer floppy. Yeah. We have just structured our unstructured hat. Ta-da! And then, when we're ready, just like any structured hat, we're going to take a piece of 3-ounce hat backing, and we're going to put that on our hoop, and we're going to hoop this just like we would any other structured hat. Because now it is a structured hat. All right? Now, I know I'm doing everything at my desk today. So what I did, where'd it go? I pre-hooped. Yep. I pre-hooped it. Yeah. And don't know if you can see inside here, but I actually have two layers of backing. Remember, the one that is glued into place, and then the one that I used for hooping. Okay. Now I have my unstructured, structured hat on its hoop. And just like any other hat, you're going to make sure that the band is in the center seam. You're going to pull away the sweatband. You're going to make sure that it follows all the way across, round to round. Yeah. And now this hat is now ready to go on the machine to be stitched. I want to step back a moment and talk about hat profiles. I know I should just move this cart a little closer. It's on wheels. I know that I mentioned profiles just a moment ago, but here, let's just take a moment. And I honestly, I wish I had a dad hat, which has a considerably shorter profile. But you measure the profile from the seam to where the hat breaks in the curve. All right. This particular hat, and of course, my handy dandy ruler works in both inches and millimeters. For today's work, we're going to talk about inches because, that's our comfort zone. This hat has a stitchable area of 2.5 inches. That's quite a bit. Now, a lot of machines will not allow you to raise and lower the design file. Yeah, I know. I fuss with it all the time. Um, so remember, if your machine permanently sets your design to start a half inch from the seam, your 2.5 inches on this hat is now only 2 inches, which is about standard. On a low profile hat, you may ultimately only have 1.5 inches to work with. Keep that in mind when you're talking about hats. Your design file cannot be taller than that, or you're going to wind up having issues. Your hat's going to it's going to shift, it's going to bang up against the arm, it's going to get caught, it's going to be a mess. So anyways, this is our structured unstructured hat. All right. Oh, one other thing before we go on to the bucket hat. For those of you who are going to be at Applique Getaway next week, all of these pieces that I'm going to show you today, I am going to stitch up with an Applique Getaway design file, which are part of our registration package. And I'm going to give them to the staff at Applique Getaway so they can give them away. How's that? All right. So let's talk about bucket hats. Yep. You want to talk about a floppy hat. This is a floppy hat. Look at that. It's all kinds of flop. Yep. And look, it only has two seams, side seams. Well, I suppose it could be a front seam, but why would you run with a seam in front of your face if you can run with a seam not in front of your face? Okay, so before we do anything with this, we need to establish the center. And with a bucket hat, that's pretty easy. And while I'm doing this, if you have any questions, just throw them out there. So what I did was I took side seam to side seam, and this one has little daisy flowers on it. Of course, that's going to restrict our stitch area some. Barb Miller, hello, good morning. Good morning, Barb. So the first thing we want to do is we want to know where the center is, because who wants to run around with a hat that's like, off center? So we match up our seams and we fold it in half And this is going to seem a little wonky, but I wanted you to be able to see it. So I'm using electrical tape, black electrical tape, to mark my center seam. And I always put my seam guide on the left side. So I always know that right of the mark, this is my center edge. Not this one, but this is my center edge. So, all right, we now know where the center is, but we're still dealing with a floppy hat. So how do we unflop it? Well, just like we did with our unstructured hat, we used 2 layers of hat backing. We folded one in half, sprayed it with adhesive, stuck it to the inside of our hat, and gave it structure. Okay? Then we used a second piece in the hoop, just like we do with any other hat. But wait, this thing has a brim that goes all the way around. Well, we all know that our hat hoop, here, we'll go back to our pink. Our hat hoop has clips, has a clip that secures the band to the hoop. So that's what makes bucket hats a little tricky. But it's easy enough. We've got our structure. We know where our center is. We're going to hoop. But what do we do with that extra bill? Well, we tuck it up out of the way. Yeah. We just fold it up. Remember, it's a floppy hat. So we just fold it up. Be careful. It's going to take a little bit of work. But you don't want that to skew how the hat lays in the hoop, because remember, we're still trying to keep everything straight. So be careful how you do your hat. In fact, this one's terrible. There we go. It's out of hoop. Now, maybe your hat hoop has been sized to fit baseball caps, whatever cap you're using. But because we're bulking this up on the sides, how do we get it to size correctly? Well, big old screwdriver. And on this side, not the side with the clip, the side without the clip, there are generally some sizing screws. Basically, you loosen that screw up. Of course, I couldn't have found a longer screwdriver, right? It's the one that came in my machine kit. We just loosen it up, and you push the ring back. I do this with, I size my hoop with a hat in place, because then I know that I am sizing to fit that hat. And then I tighten it up again. Righty tighty, lefty loosey. You know, the big commercial shops that run hats, that maybe they'll run a dozen different brands of hats, will actually have hat hoops sized for each of the brand of hats that they use, which is why if you ever go to a commercial hat embroidery, you'll see that they have dozens and dozens and dozens of hoops. but each hoop has got an assignment, or each stack of hoops has got an assignment. So we have our center, we have our hat hooped, our hoop is sized so that the hat stays in place. And this hat, again, is ready to hoop, ready to stitch. This hat, because we have the little flowers on it, has it has about 2 and 2.25 inches of stitch area that I can use on this hat. Okay. All right. So this is the tricky one. This is the hat that has no hat. What do you do with that? The hat that has no hat. Well, if your machine allows you to, Cindy, that's wonderful. Cindy agrees. That's the way you hoop a bucket hat. You got to just fold up those sides. Make sure the hoop fits. Make sure it stays tight. But what do you do with a hat that has no hat? Well, if your machine will allow you to position the start point at the lowest point, for example, and I know you can't really see it on this black hat. For example, my machine will allow me to bring the hoop needle. That's exactly right, Letty. Letty says to hoop the visor the regular way, but definitely can't have a tall design on them. So my machine will allow me to bring the start point all the way down to the hat band, which leaves me with about 1.25 inches of stitch area. Actually, 1.5 inches. And that's because, yes, you can stitch all the way up to this top, but then you run into this seam here. And who wants, you want to have a little border between the top and the bottom. If you've got a 1/4 inch on the bottom, use a 1/4 inch on the top, which is about the distance of those seams. But yes, this is a structured visor. So I can hoop this as I normally would on a hat. All right. This is the hoop that is going on my machine. Oops, wrong one. Sorry. Here we are. This is the hoop that is going on my machine. All right. There's the notch. Goes on the machine. You're going to put it in. You're going to turn it. Your design file needs to be upside down on the machine screen so that it will be right side up on the hat. Okay? No problem. But what if your machine has preset parameters that you cannot change? Brother and Baby Lock home machines are like that. If I were to load this hat on a Brother or a Baby Lock, and I'm thinking there are others, I will automatically lose, I will automatically lose the first 1/2 inch at the bottom, which now takes my 1.5, 1 3/4 stitch area down to 1 1/4 inches, which is okay if you're just putting like maybe a text logo on the hat. But what if you want something decorative? Here's what we can do for those visors that we want to stitch and we need more space on a machine that will not allow us space. We hoop it backwards. We hoop it so the visor, excuse me, we hoop it so that the bill is facing me, that it's not coming behind the head of the machine. That's exactly it, Barb. That's what we're going to do. Barb says she hoops her visors backwards in the hoop so that the bill is facing her. Couple of things to remember. You do not, if your machine automatically registers that you're using a hat hoop, it will automatically turn the design file upside down. You need to rotate it back into an upright position because you will be stitching in an upright position. Okay? The other thing you need to be careful with is hooping. This particular visor, and I should have used a different color. I'm sorry. This particular visor has a raised area in the center. When we hoop, we want to make sure that we're coming straight across. Okay? We don't want it to arc upward because we have that upward piece on this visor. So when you're hooping, follow your seam from side to side, but just know, depending on your visor, of course, that it may have to expose a little more fabric at the top. And what this does, okay, this hoop is now on the machine. That half inch of lost space is right here. In my visor, I still have all of this space. Okay? That gives me 1.5 inches of stitchable area. And yes, you can get a little design on there. That's how I hoop a visor. Make sure it's tight, make sure it's firm. Adjust the setting if necessary. But it will, by turning the hoop, by hooping the visor backwards so that the bill is facing you instead of as you normally would for a regular hat and the bill goes behind the machine. You give yourself additional space for those machines that restrict how much space you have. What does Barb say here? Cindy, I figured it out after I had to embroider a bunch of visors for the mom and grandmas of the youth baseball league. Us grannies, us mamas and grannies, need to make sure that we can see what's going on with the children. And yes, Barb says creative hooping. That's exactly what we're doing, creative hooping. So, over the last week, maybe a little longer, I was getting a lot of questions or seeing a lot of questions about how to hoop these odd hats, visors and bucket hats and unstructured hats, which is why I thought it would be an opportunity to discuss that on today's event, on today's show. Next week, I'm traveling. On Wednesday, the 13th, I will be flying to Texas. And for me, that's a trip that starts at 6 o'clock in the morning to catch the bus, to get to the airport, to catch the plane, to get to the airport, to catch the bus, to go to the hotel. So for me, it's pretty much an all day thing. And then I have Applique Getaway. I have classes all next week through the weekend, and I travel back on Monday. So what does that mean? Um, that means next Saturday at yeah, I get to see you too, Cindy. Cindy is also going to Applique Getaway. So that means next week I will be in Texas at the event. Letty, it is. It is a shuttle. I think it's like a van. Uh, but the word bus. Okay, we're gonna go on the little bus. All right. Not the little yellow bus, just the little bus. Um, so anyways, next Saturday I'm gonna be in Texas. If I can figure out and make sure I have good internet connection, um, I'll try to do a live, probably be really short, but I will try to do a live next week from Applique Getaway. Maybe we'll do a walkabout and see what it's all about. And those of you that are not there next week, maybe you'll consider meeting us up all next year. That would be exciting. I would love to sit down and have a coffee and conversation live and in person. Maybe that's what we'll do. Ladies, let's do a coffee and conversation at the table next week. All right. So, with that, I have lots of stuff I have to do in preparation for travel. Have designs to stitch on hats to give away. I have to find all of my electronics, make sure that everything is packed. I also have a machine tech coming on Monday, so I got to make sure that machine's all prepped and ready for him to fix it. Yes, I have a machine that's down. Um, but anyways, I am so excited for this next week, and I am excited. I'm excited to see all of you who may be at Applique Getaway. Um, Look for me. I'm always toting around a rolly bag that has all kinds of patches and stuff on it. So look for me and say hi. I would love to say hi. And with that, now I'm going to say bye. Well, let's see. Of course, before I can say bye, I have to find my video.
Wasn't
Bye.
that fun? Do you have more questions? Do you want to learn something new? Join me at quicktostitch.com for coffee and conversation, and we'll talk about it. Embroidery machines, designs, and business. Hope to see you soon. Bye now.